Hi guys, how are you doing? I want to take you through a short video on motion, right? Supposing you go on a long drive with your father and someone says, how was the drive? How would you describe it? Maybe you will say, maybe my father drove slowly or we drove fast. So that might not be an accurate description of the way you traveled. So physics will help you to scientifically describe motion. So the topic that we are going to discuss about is called motion. So let's imagine that you have two instruments in your dashboard. Okay, the first instrument is a clock. Okay, so you can, it's like a stop clock, you can set the time and you can stop it whenever you want. And the other instrument panel that you have is the distance meter, right? So what this activity you're going to do is, one of you is going to measure the time in the clock and one of you is going to measure the distance in the distance meter, right? So let's say you start and then you count from 0 to 10 seconds, okay? In 10 seconds, once 10 seconds are done, you say distance. Let's assume 50 meters have been traveled, okay? And then you go from 10 seconds to 20 seconds. So the total time that has elapsed now is 20 seconds, and you ask for distance and they say the distance is 100 meters have been traveled so far, right? So on, you go and keep tabulating for the total time of 30, the total distance that has been traveled for 40 and 50. And then what you do is that you tabulate these in the form of a tabular column, right? So I have the time, then I have the distance that we have traveled. This distance, bear in mind, is the total distance. And let's start putting the values, right? So in the first 10 seconds, we have traveled a distance of 50 meters. In the next 10 seconds, that is total 20 seconds in total, we have traveled 100 meters. In a total time of 30 seconds, we had traveled 150 meters. 40 was 200, and let's say in 50 seconds we had traveled 250 meters, right? So this is how we tabulate the readings of our experiment, right, of our activity. And then you will realize that if I want to find out, hey, what is the distance that I have traveled within that 10 seconds, right? So I will put a small, let's say a class interval, or the class interval, or I'm going to break this into 0 to 10 seconds. And instead of 0 to 20, I'll say, hey, from 11 to 20, I would like to find the distance. Likewise, from 21 to 30, 31 to 40, and 41 to 50. Okay, that is within each of these 10 seconds, what is the total distance traveled? I will get this is 50 as is. Here for 100, a total distance is 100, but I have already traveled 50 in first 10 seconds. So between the 11th and 20th seconds, I would have traveled 100 minus 50, that is 50. So we go ahead and we kind of calculate the distance traveled in each of these time intervals, right? And then if we were to look at the speed, right? This is the distance that I traveled, and I traveled this in 10 seconds time, right? So we have this thing called speed. Speed is nothing but distance traveled divided by the time, right? So I have traveled 50 meters in 10 seconds, so my speed is 50 meters per second. And likewise, here too I have traveled 50 in 10 seconds. So the speed is 50 meters per second. Okay, so our table is now done. Right, so after our activity and after we tabulate the values, the next step that we can do is visualize the data by plotting a graph. Okay, because many a times what happens is it is difficult to get enough data, interpret the data if it is in the form of a tabular column, whereas if you put it in the form of a graph, it's very easy for us to visualize that. Okay. Alright, so we traveled a distance of 50 in 10 seconds. So let's plot that point, 50 meters in 10 seconds. And then we have traveled 100 in 20. So we've traveled 100 in 20. Let's get this right. That's this one out here. 150 total distance in 30. So this is 150 out here and this is 30. And then 240. This is 240 somewhere out here. And 250 in 50 seconds. So that will be 250 or 50 somewhere out here. So we have plotted all the points. Now let's just draw a nice line which joins all the points. And now we have completed the graph. So from the table we could not visualize, but from here we are able to visualize and say, hey, if I translate my journey, it is looking like a straight line in a graph. Okay. So now we need to interpret what this straight line means, what this graph means, right? So if you look at it here, we had traveled equal distances, right? 50, 50, 50, 50. The distances that we traveled in 10 seconds, equal intervals of time were the same. Isn't it? We didn't say we traveled 15, 1, 16, 1. No, we traveled equal distances in equal intervals of time. Therefore, if you see our speed was constant. 50 meters per second was the speed that we maintained across all the time intervals. Okay. So when we get a straight line like this straight line in a distance time graph indicates that we had traveled at constant speed. Okay, so these are all the inferences, or this is how you interpret the graph. Okay, we traveled at constant speed. And from the graph, if you want to find out the total distance traveled at any time, you can just simply say, hey, 30 seconds I traveled 150. In 50 seconds I traveled 250 meters. So whenever a distance time graph is given, if they ask you to find total distance traveled, we can infer it from the graph itself, right? And intuitively you must have realized that this line, if the speed was lower, you would have got a line which was like this, and if the speed was higher, if we had traveled at a higher speed, then we would have got a line like this, right? So we know that we realize that this angle that the line is making with respect to the x-axis has got a lot of significance, right? So this angle is going to be representing, or you can say is proportional to the speed of the journey. So if you are traveling at lesser speed, let's say you are traveled at 20, then you would get a smaller angle. This angle would have been smaller. But if you are traveling at a higher speed, let's say 60 or 70, then this angle that you would have got, it would be larger. So the angle is proportional to this speed. Okay. So this way, using distance time graph, we can visualize the kind of motion that we had. Hope you guys have understood this. I'll discuss a lot of numericals in the subsequent videos. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a like. Thanks. Bye. guys, we also use online platform called Guru for making courses, content, and we have a lot of assessments. And these assessments are of various levels of difficulty, like L2, L3, L4. And there are a bunch of questions which, if you do on a consistent basis, will really improve your knowledge and help you to remember. Okay, so if you can register for these assessments by clicking this link, and we will call you and we will enable you with a login ID on this platform. And trust me guys that regularly if you practice, it's really going to help you a lot.